This little duo of plants right here is Homalomena spa Selby. So this is a cultivated variety. I'm actually not sure what the hybrid or the actual species of the plant that it's been cultivated from is. So if any of you actually know, if any of you are growing this plant and you know, please chime in the comments below, because I'd love to know the derivation of these plants so I could take a look as to where they are actually natively from. However, I really love the markings of this plant. I have to say that this was the first one that I got when it first came out in the market. And I have to admit, I did mistreat it a little bit. Actually, it was not on purpose, but I had it far back on my shelf in my northeast facing window, and it's a little hard to get back there. So the plants that I've learned to keep back there now are the ones that don't need that much more attention. But this one was starting to crisp up. It had like 5 leaves, it now has 3. And luckily though, I have something that's a little bit more of a prime specimen to show you, because on my book tour, I was given this from my friend Dan, who gave it to me as a gift, and I'm treating this guy a heck of a lot better. However, I kept this one and it started to put out some new leaves, and even though it has a little bit of burned tips and things like that from my miscare of it, I have this new one that's growing just fine. This I have now growing on the top of my kitchen counter, so it's getting a little bit more ambient light. I would say it's a little bit more kind of low to mid. And then this one I have actually growing under one of my grow lights in my interior of my space. And so it's slightly different light conditions, so we'll see actually how they continue to grow. I've only just gotten these within the last year, so I haven't been growing them for multiple years, which oftentimes I like to do because it just gives me a little bit more of an indication of how they grow, you know, through the seasons. But I have this one pretty much growing in the potting mix, so it's a little bit more heavy in peat. I typically, when I like to plant, I use a little bit more perlite in the mixture so that I know that I'm not overwatering the plants at all. Typically with my Homalomenas, I'm not giving them intense humidity except for a few aquatic varieties that are actually growing in my biopod. That is definitely more of the exception, but the ones that I see that are sold more on the houseplant market are typically ones that could withstand, you know, a little less humidity, although they would be very, very happy if you actually gave them a little bit more humidity. And if you're upping that humidity, typically you could water them a little less, which is also a very nice feature. As far as fertilizing goes, with my Homalomenas, I give them a balanced fertilizer, and you could get away with it on a monthly basis, although you could probably up it to a bi-weekly basis during the growing season. I think you just have to kind of observe and see, you know, how well are they growing, and if they're putting out a lot of leaves, then maybe you actually want to give it a little bit more fertilizer, so you might want to get it more on a bi-weekly basis. And as far as pests go, I've had not any pest pressures. Even when I was stressing this little guy out, no pests actually came to its foliage. And but otherwise, I think it's like a great plant. I mean, look at some of this coloration, that kind of like light froggy green coloration with splotches of the dark green. And again, this is like, it seems relatively a new cultivar that came out on the market within the last year. So I would highly recommend that if you could find it, get one, try growing it yourself, and tell me how you do in the comments below.